What's up, guys? It's Mark with another episode of the Pearl Snap Tactical Podcast. As you were, another riveting episode of the Pearl Snap Tactical Podcast, the show that gives you the tips and tools you need to make yourself stronger, faster, and harder to kill. This week, I've got, you know him, you love him, he's back for another round. It's my good friend, author, and former Green Beret, Clay Martin, returns to do a deep dive into the evolving security landscape. He's going to be breaking down major threats that could impact us here at home in the near future. We're going to discuss the growing potential for conflict with war, potential war with the cartels, the increasing vulnerability to our power grid, and the fragility of our supply chains, and much, much more. Clay is going to share his insights on these threats and provide some actionable advice on how security-minded citizens can better prepare and protect themselves. So like I said, on some of the topics we're going to cover is, what are the, President Trump just declared the cartels a terrorist organization. So if we go kinetic with those guys, and there's already been some action down there at the border, but as that thing evolves, what's the likelihood and consequences of a war with the cartels? What would that look like? What's that mean for you? We're going to talk about how America's power grid remains at a critically weak point. We're going to talk about the risk to the supply chain and how disruptions could unfold and impact you, and also practical steps for individuals to enhance their security and resilience, and much, much more. If you're serious about preparedness, gang, if you care about situational awareness and understanding real threats on the horizon, you need to listen to this episode. Clay is going to bring his no-nonsense approach and colorful language, if you know how he rolls from the previous episode that we had, to security analysis, and offers some really practical takeaways you can apply in your own life today. So, guys, I typically myself try to keep it PG-13 here for those who have kids in small ears listening at home. But at the same time, I don't censor my guests because I want them to be themselves. I want them to be free, and I want you to have a real conversation with these guys. So, hey, it is what it is. He's very colorful in his language. So if you've got any little kids at home, you might want to wait and put them to bed before you put your speakers on blast. Hey, before we go, I want to give you a quick update. I know I have not put out. There's been a pause in the podcast for about a week or two, and that's because I had a major medical emergency issue happen with an extended member of the family, which they live a few hours away from us. So there were some logistical issues that me and my wife had to work out while taking care of the family and all that stuff. Also, I jumped on a temporary active duty stint just for a few weeks with my military unit. And so all of that was happening at the same time, and it kind of got me off schedule. But I'm about to put a button on that, zip it up, and we should resume here shortly to regularly scheduled episodes that you know and love. So in the meantime, hey, if you'd like to support the show, make sure you share it with your buddies. That's about the only way we're growing. Get the word of mouth out, share it with your buds, and if you would, consider becoming a premium subscriber. There's a lot of uncensored and exclusive content there for members only. So give that a shot too over there on our Substack page. So without further ado, we're talking about cartels, grid down, and supply chain collapse. What's coming next? It's all on Pearl Snap Tactical Podcast with our special guest, Clay Martin, and we're starting right now. Welcome back to the Pearl Snap Tactical Podcast, the show that gives you the tips and tools you need to make yourself stronger, faster, and harder to kill. I'm your host, Mark, and once again, we're bringing him back, one of our favorite guests, the man famed of song and legend, Clay Martin. Welcome, brother.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, man, I'm glad you're back on. The last episode we did, I don't know, a month or two ago, did really well. So there's a lot going on in the
I'll say
security space and politically and just kind of everything going on. So I wanted to bring you back on to kind of get your thoughts on some of this and how we can better situate ourselves in anticipation of it. But before we do, I know most folks on the podcast are probably familiar with you, but in case they're not, can you just kind of give us a list of your superpowers and your background?
I'm a Capricorn. I like long walks on the beach, and I really wish for world peace. that's I'm a former Marine, reconnaissance Marine Scout Sniper, cross-decked over the Army, 18E to 18F. I was in a dedicated direct action unit for the parts of the war. Close quarter battle instructor and sniper instructor at the end of that. Former professional 3-gun shooter, did a bunch of competitive shooting bullshit. I was in the gun journalism world for about 10 years, and then I started writing books. I've written 6 of them so far. The latest is Barbarian Spirit. The one before that I recommend is Wrath of Wendigo, and all available on Amazon.com.
I've read them both, and they're both really good. I've basically shoved those books down everybody's throats that I know. So yeah, they're getting read. Hey, well, before we go into what we're going to talk about, you'd mentioned, I like to, not everybody is going to know acronyms and stuff that the Army, the Army likes to shit out acronyms and stuff. So, your MOSs, you said 18 Fox and there was another one.
18 Echo. So I started as an 18 Echo, which is a special forces communications guy. So it's the radio dude on the team. And then 18F is an advanced MOS after that, which is the intelligence sergeant.
Okay. Did you, this guy was in I forget, I think he was in 7th group, but then he was in 3rd or 7th group, but then he crossed over into 19th group. But his name, Heath Patrick, he was on the show last week. Do you know him?
I don't know off the top of my head. I might if I saw his face, though.
He lives in Kansas now. Super good dude. He's a captain. So really, I know it's a small world. Sometimes you guys run into each other. So I didn't know if you'd know him, but super good dude, man. Super nice and humble. And anyway, definitely somebody would be good for you to know. All right, let's move into it. All right. So our first topic is the economic, right? These are, I want to pull out some things that maybe people don't just automatically think about, but it's like, when you're talking about planning and preparation, just like in the military, it's more than just, do we have beans and bullets? We have to take into the situation, the units, the assets, and kind of bring it all into totality. And so when I think about in the civilian world, economics plays a part, right? If you don't have, you can't buy the things you need or even the food, even if you want to stockpile, 10 crates of tuna fish in your basement, if you don't have any money, that's going to be hard to do.
Right.
Another thing I think about too, people like buying bug out, areas like, hey, this is my piece of land, I'm going to go. But, if you don't pay the taxes on it and the government forecloses, now what do you get? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like that. And I don't ever hear anybody talking about that. Right.
Right.
So, all right, so we've just had a major election. Whether or not you like Trump or whatever, I think both sides of the aisle can, if they're honest, know that we're dealing with 50 years at least of poor economic decision making, by both sides. And we could be headed towards the national debt is incalculable right now. Can't even pay the interest on it. So an economic meltdown, that's got all kinds of implications, right? What do you have any advice, and it doesn't have to be a 5-point contingency plan or anything like that, but if someone is looking at, the world right now and their world and where they're living, and they want to try to get ready, but they're starting from zero.
Oh yeah.
And they have limited resources and probably going to get spread even thinner in the years to come. What would you recommend people do?
Well, and we have to look at the short-term problems too. All right. So, Trump came in, he's doing crazier shit than even I thought he would do, which I count as a positive in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But to think that can't or won't have short-term economic impacts that are negative, even if they end up being positive later, is foolish thinking. And, I'm not an economics genius. Let's just put that out there. But I can foresee, especially like these ICE raids happen. We got to deport all these dudes, and it's happening. And they're hitting, a lot of places that illegals work, which happens to be like meat packing plants, things like that. They hit a meat packing plant next to my cousin's house yesterday that they haven't touched in like 5 years, and took busloads of who was out of there. Wow. So in the short term, I think we could reasonably say things may get a little nutty for a minute. Even if they're going to improve later, they might get real weird right now. So I'm looking at this. What are the things that in my supply chain that can hurt me immediately over the next 2 to 3 months? So I'm trying to just, not go crazy, not, take a, $1,000 grocery trip to, Walmart or some bullshit, but plussing up a little bit on the things that I got to have, especially like proteins, things like that. Cause I also live in town. I don't have a fucking sheep farm or any crazy shit. Mm-hmm. Get a little bit plussed up on those things, maybe fill the freezer, but not even like good cuts of meat, it's like some bullshit, some the thin cut pork chops that are grade F, not grade A, because it's not unreasonable to think that will happen. Mm-hmm. I also, if Trump, I believe he is an economic genius, but again, you don't just turn these things on a dime. All right, if you're gonna, grab somebody by the hair that's still pretty tough, all right, you're gonna have to hit him a few times before you put him on the floor. Yeah. We could also see some price increases. China tries to fuck with us as we fuck with them first, or back, or however you want to phrase that. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's very prudent to think of at least 3 months of things get a little spicy, if not up to a couple years. Very very reasonably, it may take that long. The economic engines are so big and complex that it can take a year from something that happens now to really have an effect on the backside of it. Yeah. So then the other thing I would say, look at things that are absolutely critical for you, maybe not even really critical, but hard to get. Medicines you can buy, some Amazon brand antibiotics and a little bit of bullshit here and there. And again, don't go crazy, don't max out the credit cards, but if you can up your spending right now while things are still the price they are by 10%. Stop buying Starbucks coffee this week and put that money in the kitty for some stuff. Yeah. And don't like all consume yourself either with, oh my God, I got to do all this shit. But do think I gotta change my attitude a little bit for a little while and buy shit that I will use regardless over time. But yeah, get a little bit plussed up on foods, a little bit plussed up on medicines, and just start thinking like this might have to get ugly before it gets better.
All right. That's fair enough. All right, let's move on to the grid, man. So, back, man, this was about 10 years ago when I was starting to teach counterterrorism, anti-terrorism courses to law enforcement and stuff. I came across a book that was written in 1993. So it was right after the first World Trade Center attack by Al-Qaeda that a lot of people, don't talk about. And it was, you can get it. It's called, I think, When the Eagle Screams or something. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I downloaded it. It's free now, or it was when I downloaded it. It's a really good book. And, but one of the things he talked about in there already was the critical infrastructure and how vulnerable the grid was. And I know in law enforcement circles, at least, and security practitioners, there's a little bit more conversation. And I know after 9/11, some of that got hardened up, but probably not enough. I mean, one thing is the grid's antiquated. We've already seen that in Texas, a couple of years ago where they had severe ice storms and freezes that the grid just about went down. It was packed to its, so what if we do get in? So not even an attack. We've got some cities that are having rolling blackouts, throughout the year, i.e. California and stuff like that. So, even just taking away a terrorist attack, the grid is so taxed to its capacity already that it's pretty realistic to think that could impact you depending on where you live. So what are your thoughts on that as far as preparing yourself?
Dude, we just went through a record cold snap in Arkansas. We both lived that out in different ways. It is a huge problem. All right, and it's a twofold problem. One, most people in this country are incredibly reliant on either electricity or natural gas that comes out of a pipe.
Mm-hmm.
To even include places where they should know better, like Montana. Like, go to Montana and find me new construction with a wood stove in it. You can't. There's not any, because they've shied away from that. Washington State today actually banned any wood burning heat source inside of a home, and it gave themselves the power to retroactively go after them too.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, bro.
Wow.
Whereas, being a northerner myself, a huge believer in what I would call a mechanical backup. It means that, I like my central heat. I like hitting the switch, but at the end of the day, can I take this stupid hatchet out and out of practice, cut some sticks up and set them on fire in a device and stay warm? That's fucking hugely important.
Yeah.
The other thing that's true with this is most of us are just not that fucking hard anymore. And I don't like to be. Like, I would like to be soft, actually. But we may find ourselves, okay, look, like 40 years ago, I'm dating myself, but 40 years ago, it was not that big of a deal to lose power for a week or two or three. It just, that's how shit was. That's how the grid was. That's how life was. It was not out of the question for anyone. Whereas most people in that time since, the grid's been up constantly. It's if it's 3 days without power, it's like, oh my God, it's a fucking crisis.
Right.
Well, you can live without that shit. You just have to know how, and it really helps to have practiced a little bit. And it's not going to be as fun. You're going to be sleeping in like 15 wool blankets and shit in your house. But you will survive. The biggest thing to me with that is start thinking about it. Look at your house, probably with its shitty construction, because that's how life works now. We've been using, imported labor and the cheapest sheetrock we can find, even on the expensive houses.
Yep.
How would I live if all my shit went out for 2 weeks? Is there a way to isolate a room in this house and make it bearable? Do I have enough shit? All right. What's a down comforter rated for? Well, it's rated for a 60-degree house. It's rated to keep your tootsies a little bit warmer when the fucking power's on. Do you have some real boy shit to live through this?
Yeah.
These are things that we it's easy to say we all should have thought about, but it is, you have to, if you haven't done it before, you need to spend a little time and effort on that, and some gangster ass winter boots, because what if you need to be on your feet for 12 hours a day with nowhere to heat them up?
Yeah.
We just have to start thinking about these things as contingencies. And it would be, you're right. Just the grid goes down. It would be very easy for somebody trying to fuck with us to hurt the grid some, as well as we are seeing, and it's not like climate change, some bullshit like that. We're in a cycle where we're seeing some crazy shit. This morning, it was Lake Michigan is like 50% more ice than it's ever had in recorded history. They got like freighters stuck on the fucking lake. Well, it's going to be cold this year, boys. That probably means it's going to be cold next year too.
Yeah.
Just addressing the problem is the big thing. Another thing that I see as a problem with that is, and this is just kind of unfortunate, nobody's had to deal with this in so long that a lot of people don't know how. So you have to go looking for experts, man. You have to go look for I love like the survival bros, like the real guys that go out and do bushcraft and shit all the time. Yeah. Those guys know what the fuck they're talking about. Go find you one of those dudes that looks like he's doing real shit. Look at what he's using. Look at what he says are the right things, but start thinking along those contingency lines.
Yeah. And it kind of, this a little bit off the topic, but it's related, because our last time, you were here, we were talking about building your mutual support network.
Oh, yeah.
Getting dudes with skills. And I mean, how important that goes into it too, because you can have all the bushcraft skills in the world and make it for a weekend, but to do it long term, like all you have to do is watch that show alone. Have you ever watched that?
Dude, I love it. Yes, no, it's great.
Those, dude, you want to talk about a clinic in reality? Shit. I mean, these dudes, most of these guys, are instructors on bushcraft. Like they have training companies. Like they do this 24/7, and then they get out in the wilds of Canada. And I mean, these dudes are they don't even make it a week. Because to build shelter, to get water, to procure food, to cook it, to stay warm. I mean, that burns up a lot of times more calories than you're pulling from the land. And so if you don't have division of labor, if you don't have other people that can shoulder that burden, that know what they're doing. It's not, like I said, you
Right.
might make it a day or two, but you're just living off your fat stores. I mean, pretty
Right.
much. Once that runs out, you're pretty much hosed.
Right.
So, it just goes back again, like the lone wolf dies alone.
Yeah.
I mean, they really
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. Fucking right.
So, just kind of, we'll hit that again. All right. This is something related, but I'm going to ask the question kind of like, so we can kind of delve maybe a little deeper into it, but like supply chains, right? So I kind of look at the supply chain disruption, kind of like a grid compromise, the same way. But we got, during back in 2020, I think some people got a taste of what that could look like.
Yeah.
I remember going into Sam's, and we weren't, where I live, we weren't that adversely affected, but I remember walking into the shelves of Walmart and Sam's, like the shelves were empty, dude.
Yep.
Like just for normal stuff. And I remember I walked into the meat section, it was bare at Sam's.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to have the membership just to get in. So it's not even like all the public, in my town were going to Sam's. So you had even a smaller population that had access to that, and you walk in and it's gone, dude. I mean, I think there were like 2 or 3 bags of chicken wings, and that was it, dude. Yep. Not to say for the other things. So, all right, so people kind of understand what that would look like. They got a taste of it. But what do you think? What did we miss? What were people not talking about, how that could impact us?
That's an interesting question. As well as continuing to think, because honestly, in some of the areas I've lived, we still see that. It's almost like supply chain never really recovered from COVID, which sounds fucking crazy because it's been 5 years now, but it's true. And part of this has been trying to beat inflation and cost cutting on the corporate level and all this other bullshit. Part of it was that them realizing like what fat can we cut as far as like storage capability and warehousing. And we have just we've still been in an economic downturn ever since too. Things have not been good on any level. Like pretty much BlackRock's the only assholes making any more money than everybody else has been hurting.
Yeah.
So this is also part of the deal. Now we're America. I mean, we're fucking Americans. We're the smartest, most capable, capitalistic, greedy motherfuckers who've ever walked the earth. So we will fix it eventually. But this could be part of this kind of new world that we're entering. And I mean, I cannot overstate the impact of what is going on right now. And we're just at the cusp of it. But I can see us seeing severe supply chain disruption. Again, China trying to put pressure on us while they can to make it so we can't have certain shit or the price has gone up. That will eventually get corrected. But I just feel like as Americans, we have to tighten our belts right now and think in the future for the next 3 years. I think that will be common. I think we will see much more supply chain disruption than we've ever seen. And therefore we just have to think in further distances than we normally do. I'm guilty of it just like anybody else. I think like 2-3 days in advance for groceries. I'm like, okay, I'll do this, and I'm lazy today, so I'll come back this door. I don't want to buy shit.
Yeah.
Or I'll have this fast, easy thing, or something like that. We're just gonna have to start thinking in longer term and in contingencies. What can I make out of bullshit in the back of my cupboard that I don't really like? This is a good time to find out. This is actually a good time to start working on those things, making them palatable. Maybe once a week, like the make the hobo dinner. Like, this is what's up. And that's going to kind of help us like expand our options too. I don't particularly like things out of a can, but guess what? In a crisis, as long as I can keep them from freezing, and exploding in the fucking store in the cabinet, which is also part of contingency planning. That's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to know what's what. It's a good thing right now to start looking as you stockpile things like that a little bit. Don't go fucking crazy. Remembering to look at the calories on the back. This is one of the few times where the cheap thing will often screw you where the expensive thing won't. All right, if I have the store brand, it's got 400 calories per can, and I've got the Denti More Special, it's got 2,000 calories for twice the price. What's the better value for once?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Things that we don't think about when obesity is an epidemic, but things that we need to think about if we're contingency planning.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to that, that Alone show, man, there's just so many lessons in that.
Oh,
I mean,
bro, it's awesome.
I
It's
don't watch
amazing.
it anymore. I mean, really, if you watch 1 or 2 seasons, you pretty much got the gist of it, that like protein and fat, man, those are the 2 things you cannot live without, man.
Right.
That's what your body's going to, I don't care how much you love carbs and everything, man. Those people die. I mean, they get rolled up in that show really quick. They don't have protein and fat.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, that's not a time to be like trying to watch your weight or anything like that. I mean, it's like the more fat, the better, right?
Yeah.
All right. So cool. All right. Let's move into kind of more the kinetic space. Right. Let's talk about crime. Let's talk about cartels. Let's talk about terrorism.
Oh boy.
Because all that has been in the news cycle quite a bit. Let's talk about, we haven't seen, this time around, I think even a lot of folks I've been watching on X and stuff were kind of taken back that we haven't seen yet the amount of protests and riots and stuff that we did during the last election cycle. There's some people that were on top of that were forecasting, saying, hey, it's not going to be the same way around. These people are not as organized. They're not as funded and stuff like that. But, it's kind of like, if I can use a Jungian concept of the dry riverbed, it's like those networks are there. It's like a dry riverbed, and all it's going to take is the right amount of rainfall, and those things can fill up again.
Right.
So it seems like I said, they're still around. So how does the average security-minded citizen factor that into their training and preparedness? Right. Well, we talked about that last time, but I'm thinking more in terms of what are some early warning indicators that those riverbeds or those creek beds are getting full? Because once your stores and your city's burning, well, it's kind of too late.
Right.
So what are some indicators from an intel perspective that you can look at and you can say, man, the wind's about to shift?
Well, actually, I think about this a completely different way, and this is worth delving into. I tend to agree with Gray Zone Intel, and God damn it, man, that's his Twitter handle, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Right
Mike Shelby.
Mike Shelby. Okay.
Anybody that wants to
Mike Shelby, I have to give brilliant analysis on this. He said that those were basically weapons of opportunity used by the lefty elitist, and that those are gone now. And I believe him on that. Those only ever got to fruition because they needed to be wielded, so they were funded, and the prosecution ignored their crimes, all this other shit. I actually think for once that we're not worried about the creek bed filling up. I feel like we successfully built the fucking dam on those, but what we didn't count on is the runoff goes a different direction.
Right. Yeah.
So it has been kind of shocking that it was, until you kind of accept okay, this is just not going to fucking happen anymore. Now, the flip side of that, what we haven't seen yet, and this kind of actually fills the same thing, because Trump actually brought the hammer down on this deportation shit, which I'm shocked because I didn't think he fucking had it in him. I really didn't. But as these people start to rally, all right, we can see exactly the same thing, and 10 times worse actually, because there's a lot more of them that are a lot more motivated than just looting TVs. They're actually fucking pissed off.
Yeah.
I believe that's the direction that we're heading. And a lot of these people are not going to go quietly, especially when they realize that it's for a long time, or we might actually change laws or secure the border. And the bitterness there, because they're being expelled from this country. It's not like the last bits of fucking morons where they could just go back to their house with their looted Nikes from Foot Locker. These people have arguably a more serious grievance. So it could be their goal as this goes on, just to completely fucking destroy everything, or think that they can actually do enough damage that the U.S. government will stop. So this is actually, I think, 10 times more dangerous.
Yeah.
So what we had to be prepared for with that, your vigilance has to go up, and your personal, what I could call normal crime fucking fear. Like, this is my pistol and knife work. Like, it has to be elevated very much. We could see this, it's open to because I'm pissed off because my, fucking cousin got deported last week. So we have to turn our vigilance up on that. We have to be also aware of like the group crime stuff happening just organically. And then the real fun one, I think Trump did the right thing by declaring the cartels terrorist organizations. I think that's a fight that's absolutely necessary, but it doesn't come without cost. Again, same mentality. Terror has worked for them as a weapon for the last 40, 60 years. It would be very reasonable to expect, at least in the early stages of it, cartels to escalate what they can do in this country just as a means of like pushing back, just as a means of like, hey, fuck you, leave us alone or else this can happen.
Yeah.
We can't back down from that, but we do have to count on things could get very, very, very ugly for a pretty good period of time.
Yeah. So I was going to roll into that too. I was going to separate or I guess for lack of a better term, the organic type of threats, that we saw in 2016 and 2020 versus the transplanted or imported. Because I did an episode a couple months ago on sleeper cells. And no tinfoil hat stuff. Like I documented actual court cases. These were cases where investigation, arrests were made, convictions were made, and it ranged from, from people like from Chinese, having cells here. We know terrorist cells, like we know Hamas has a presence here, Hezbollah, other groups that have been here for years. And,
Muslim Brotherhood, all that shit.
Yeah. Muslim Brotherhood, they've been here since the 60s. And I think a lot of times and I used to talk to law enforcement about this too, that I was trying to get across the point that the reason why you're not seeing more attacks is it's not advantageous yet. Like these folks are in here building networks, logistics. I mean, they're conducting like a military operation where you don't just roll in and start attacking. Like you first build your logistic supplies, you get your supporters. Like if you want to build an insurgency, I mean, the one thing from if you want to study Castro and Che Guevara and, other insurgencies around the world is you have to have the support of the people to win an insurgency. So obviously they're not going to try to win over people like you and me or people that listen to the podcast, but people from their own demographic that are here, that they make inroads with that. And that takes a lot of time. And the more time they have, when they do decide to go to kinetic, it's going to be, it's like the Sun Tzu thing. Like you secure victory before the first shot's fired, right?
Right.
And so that's what I'm like. Are there any indicators? Like, because it's so hard to like go off of just what you get on the news,
right? Oh, the news is bullshit,
propagandized and stuff. But if you're trying to do your own work, I mean, what are your resources? How do people discover those things if that stuff's going on in your area?
It's really tough because a lot of times when we do find out about this shit too, like these sleepers, all these kind of things, it feels like it comes from plants, from stories that our own government wants us to know. Like my classic example is Sarah Adams, who I trust as far as I can throw her, on the Sean Ryan show, which is a fantastic episode. Everybody should watch it. But why did that information come out at that time? It's been known about for 15 years or more. And this is mostly referencing the what they say now is a North Korean cell that took out the power plant in California, and it's a famous attack. I forget the fucking name of it. Why did that information come out now? The big thing here is there's almost no resource that you're going to be able to get about shit in your local area unless you're really tied in with local law enforcement and they're on top of it. There's almost no other source that's going to help you. Maybe some autists on fucking 4chan, because they do discover some crazy shit sometimes.
Yeah.
The one other thing that's like kind of helpful, I think, is local crime stats if you can find them, especially on like gang activity. that kind of shit. If you got an MS-13 presence, you can count on some bad shit could potentially happen to your area. And it's weird, man. It's like you're saying about the long-term infiltration too. A lot of times, I mean, there hasn't been anything kinetic because it hasn't been advantageous, but also it doesn't always have to be. This is what our own fucking intelligence services do. Like, we have insurgencies ready to go everywhere in the fucking world. Just some of those are allies right now, so it's not advantageous.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to turn on the British insurgency while they're still, handling our banking and basically doing our fucking shit. So this could be yet another problem, though. All right. Trump has a big fucking mess to clean up on the world stage, too. So as he starts doing this, it starts getting fucking squirrely. It's not even difficult to imagine that some of these cells will activate. And just a few at a time. Doesn't have to be all of them, but, one here, that's a pressure point. Like, they did some crazy shit and, fucked up the power grid in Virginia. Like, these are all these little, like, cloak and dagger fucking moves and counter moves. So some of it's actually completely unpredictable too. If you live in like a small area with none of those presences, it doesn't still mean that you weren't the random fucking dart on the dartboard that was picked. So it's just escalated vigilance is really, I think, all we can do. Getting our own people together, and starting to organize.
So I want to go back to a couple things
in case we need
said, just because I could already hear, like, I think most people are, they're smart to listen to this podcast, but just on the off chance some weirdos like, oh my God, he's a racist, he's doing this, that. Like, we know, you can look up a court case called Texas versus Holy Land Foundation, which was prosecuted back in 2004. And that was basically broke wide open the Muslim Brotherhood footprint in this country. And basically, how, they came here in the 1960s. They organized on a college campus, University of Illinois in Urbana. And the first thing they started was taking over the Muslim Student Association. So they started with their people, right? And so it's not that all those students that were going there that were even part of that organization knew or were interested in that. But it's like, you start with people that you have common ground, either a cultural connection and that just makes sense, right? Like, if you move into a new town and you don't know anyone and you want to start making connections, if you play bridge or whatever, you're probably going to go to the bridge club, and because you're going to start finding, hey, you like bridge. I don't even know how to play bridge. I'm just using that as an example, but like some innocuous example, or golfing or whatever, you're going to gravitate to some group that has a tie. And that's what they did. They started taking over professional associations and everything like that. And it's not like they announced themselves. It's not that they told everybody that they were going to do that, but they started where there was a tie, even if it was tenuous, and they started recruiting from there and then putting their people in positions of leadership, things like that. That's just infiltration, penetration, operations 101, right? That's just that's just easy.
Well, you could look at this a different fucking way too. Like all the same shit, but if across town there's a fucking compound of fruitcakes wearing Hugo Boss outfits and flying, fucking swastikas and SS flags, and it looks like fucking Operation Werewolf over there. Well, I should be fucking concerned about them too. All right, in exactly the same fucking way. And they could still commit random crime against me and my blonde-haired, blue-eyed fucking children because that's their breakaway fucking motif. We need to cause some terror. Yeah, worry about those cocksuckers too.
As far as building your network, let's see what you think about this. So, one thing that I would highly recommend people do is, and you touched on this, is make contact and build relationships with your local law enforcement. And the reason why is because I've got buddies that are cops around the country. And one thing I've noticed that they have in common is that they have a listserv, right? That the departments have a listserv with other departments and other units, like a listserv, an email list, right? And so what they do is they share information.
Okay.
And they send briefings out. They send bulletins. They threat assessments. All that kind of stuff. And so I would get emailed like every month. I was on a listserv from a dude that was in Georgia who was a sheriff's deputy, and he'd be like, and it might be stuff specific to his area, but it gave me food for thought to be like, well, is that stuff going on in my area? And, they would send things out and communicate. And that's what I'm saying is like, those guys have access to information, especially that's going on locally that never makes the newspaper.
Dude. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, that information is so much more at the ground of where we all like strategic intel. Like, I don't like, what the fuck am I going to do about it? Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, China's, naval capacity is this, like, okay, I don't even have a fucking battleship in my bathtub anymore. I'm 40 years old. It doesn't matter. The shit that's going on locally, though, that LE is seeing with their very robust intelligence networks, that is
for
important
sure
to me. That is the things that are going to affect me.
Yeah, and they have access to that. They know, and all right. So we were kind of talking strategic level with intel, but let's just bring it to the tactical level. If there's a rash of burglaries in your neighborhood, like when I was a prosecutor one time, we were having this rash of burglaries in these neighborhoods. Right, it was just one house after another, one house after another. We couldn't figure out who it was, and so we had cops doing surveillance of certain areas, just basically trying to get these dudes. But the point is, hey man, we have a rash of burglaries on the west side of town. Well, hell's bells, man. If you live in the west side of town, that's information that's not getting put out. And you see what they're doing to combat that. And you can either maybe even mimic some of those strategies to kind of keep yourself safe. I mean, I don't think there's any downside with knowing your local law enforcement. You know what I mean? There's really not.
No, there's really not. There's even if we're in the situation where, and I feel like we are, a lot of cops suck now. A lot of cops are just, they're fucking bootlicking status motherfuckers that will do whatever. There's still some good ones. All right. And still, there's no downside to having a positive relationship to start with. If that needs to turn hostile later, like, all right, motherfucker, cool. There's no point in having it right now because there is no upside to it to me.
And I could just, this is anecdotal, but it's just my experience. I mean, I know it was so funny, man. This was like, I don't mean to keep like telling my stories and stuff because I'm bringing you here as a guest, but, years ago, when this was probably in the 20 teens, and this was where every 2A person at the time, even though this was a few years ago, I mean, it seems like ages, but it was a different time. And most of your 2A folks had, back the blue, thin blue line, like everybody had the stickers. Everybody was very, very pro cop. And I remember being in a course and I was telling these guys this, and it was right about the time when, I could see the news media trying to drive a wedge between the 2A and the cops. They were talking about gun confiscations, and that was the time, banning magazine capacities, all that stuff. And then the people in the 2A started getting very vocal and, started turning their, metaphorically speaking, sights on the cops. And I would tell the police this. I would say, look, I was like, the media doesn't care about you. Anytime you show up and there's a story, there's a shooting, there's going to be a nationwide spotlight on you, and it's not going to be good. I said the cops don't care. The criminal element doesn't care. Soccer mom driving around who's listening to NPR or something, she's not going to care about you. I was like, you have one group, one demographic, and that's the 2A community that's on your back. I was like, do not marginalize those folks. Do not alienate those folks. And that's exactly what happened. And, I know plenty of police officers that totally, want people to be armed responsibly. They want people to be trained responsibly. They support all that. There's a lot of police officers that actually do believe in the Constitution and won't violate it. But a lot of those guys have been run out of the force too. Yeah, by design.
They have. This last 4 years has been
and replaced with
on those guys. It's been
drones, and I don't
ugly.
mean the machines that fly around. I'm just talking about like not NPCs, that'll. So So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. But I mean, I know so many that they really do want to protect their communities, man. They really do want to and will put their
Yeah.
life on the line, man, and would take a bullet for you in a heartbeat because they do love their communities. This is where they live. And so anyway,
Yeah. Well, it puts them in a very bad position too. Like the solid dudes, they're in a fucking situation where nobody fucking likes their ass. It's tough. It's fucking brutal. I mean, culturally, it's one of the things we have to fix anyway. As we hopefully have seized a little bit of power here, we have to get this back to where, like, being a police officer, like a noble calling, and they used to be like something the young men aspired to. Man, it was good shit. In fact, a lot of dudes are like, I'm going to go to the military for 4 years, and I'm going to go be a fucking deputy for 20. It was a good calling for those dudes to have that fucking warrior in them. It really has only been in the last 4 years that shit has gotten so fucking bad. We have got to find a way to culturally shift that back.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but like, how did we do that?
Yeah. One of the ways that would help immensely is helping them, up the political chain. This is one of those things where, like, a good mayor and a good DA can influence very much, like, the tone of the police force that you have. In general, like, supporting those dudes when they're not shitheads, going out of our way to show support for them. And hell, dude, one of the things that hurt the police, I feel like, the most in the last 2 decades actually was the Derek Chauvin case, because they fucking railroaded that guy. It's been wild that Trump hasn't given him a part. He got totally fucked. I watched the trial, dude, and I first thought, I was like, that's I understand, because I've dealt with criminal chuckleheads too, and I'm not sad about this, but he probably went too far. No, hell no. When I watched the trial and watched that his defense actually break all this stuff down, and watched, like, Minneapolis's use of force instructor be like, he did everything exactly like we trained him to by the book, all this shit. Helping, I do believe that firmly, helping Derek Chauvin out and getting him his pardon that he is due would do a lot for helping the police culture in this country. And the next time something like this happens, some more vocal support and some fucking help.
Yeah. I know.
Oh man, we're getting banned from fucking YouTube for this one. I know. You bring out the best in me, Mark, and I use that best very, 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 very loosely. Fuck it, I stand by that shit.
For sure.
I believe that firmly.
It's a bad case, and now I see them. I've been seeing this a little bit. It's like, now that they've totally eroded the public trust in law enforcement, now they're going after the military. I've seen that too, and yeah.
Well, and military's dick soup right now too. Like, those motherfuckers couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. It's fucking horrifying. But again, culturally, we have to fix that. We have to do whatever it takes to have those institutions corrected. Yeah. But that's a long road. It's not easy. It's not overnight.
Like, a lot of people, I've talked to cops that are looking at the end stretch of their retirement, and they'd be like, man, I'd never have my son. I'd tell my son never to go into law enforcement, or even soldiers and military people saying, man.
Yep.
But
me
really,
too. I tell my sons that.
I don't know.
Hell no.
If you don't get the right people in those slots, then how is that going to change? I mean, it can't really change from the outside. You have to get people in it. Don't you think?
Well, we're in a very weird spot right now. And I don't know the answer to this either. It seems like the empire has just done a lot of things that are very conveniently, perfectly aligned with getting my trust again. And she was a dirty whore before, so I don't think that I trust that bitch.
Yeah,
is basically what that comes down to. And I'm trying to think with the right head.
Yeah,
about not trusting this bitch. It's going to take a lot to get me back, and I hope actually a lot of our brothers are like that. But we're at this, like, cultural place where we could have split. We could still split the nation. I mean, it could still go fucking pear-shaped. But if that's not true, if this is actually a chance to, like, reconcile and heal, and we are still going to be the United States of America, 51 states including Greenland, then in that case, yes, if we're actually going to go that road, We do. We had to get those people back in those positions. We had to gut the fucking Biden military and build that motherfucker back. Big, tough, mean,
Yeah.
steroids, HGH, fucking methamphetamine, whatever it takes. Fucking fighter pilots, all kinds of shit. As well as, on the other side, our police forces and rule of law and all that shit. And I don't know, man. That's a big task. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of harm that's been done that it's going to take a long time to heal. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. I was going to say something. I can't. Dang it. I guess I didn't take my meds this morning.
Is it because I called the United States of America a dirty whore? Is that what threw you?
Yeah, that you just jogged my memory. So I got to keep you more, dude. You can kind of help me remember my fleeting thoughts. But another episode I did was on. I started studying civilizational collapse. I did an episode on that, and then I did another episode on the elite. I think one of the best things that ever happened to me to shift my paradigm to see things differently and more realistically is like, you got to get out of the Democrat Republican paradigm. It's a uniparty. You got to get out of the left right paradigm. That's just controlled opposition and manipulating. But like, I don't know if have you ever heard of Peter Turchin?
Yeah.
You have?
No.
Yeah. So guys like that study elite theory that
I have not. No, I have not. I'm still here. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think it just kind of buffered out a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
So
buffered
out.
Out.
So he's talking about elite.
So Peter Turchin, no, I have not heard
I highly recommend you, man. He's one that he's a scientist that has like created mathematical models of like civilizational decline and making predictions off of it. And he's written several books. Oh yeah, it's super interesting. And so I didn't just in that episode, I didn't just use his theories. There's, other people that study this. And what's interesting is it's like math problems, like there's different ways to work the equation to get to the same answer. And all these guys are using different models, but they kind of all run to this. They all reach the same conclusion basically. But, with elite theory, he's saying basically when you go into your last cycle of civilizational decline, it's due to a result in large part between competition of elites. So the more technologically advanced you get, right, and the more streamlined your hierarchy and power structures get, right, you have people vying for these top positions of power, but they become more scarce. And so you have the people at the top, and then you have the counter elites or the people that are aspiring to get those. And so then you have competition amongst them. And so what happens, that's one way that civil wars start or economic decay starts, right? Because, either way, whether you're on the elite side or the counter elite side, you need a base of population for your support. You can't do it without them. And so, for the longest time, we've been segmented between right and left. But I think what we've seen now, you've definitely seen that with some of these billionaires that were lefty, in the previous election that have now seemed to be jumping to the other side. And I think the thing that, like, there's a guy named Academic Agent and some of these other guys that are really astute at following this is saying, look, these guys aren't changing ideology just because they had a change of heart. Like these dudes, when they, certain billionaires and companies that were pushing wokeism and stuff like that, now they're getting off the ride because that dog don't hunt anymore. It's not that they ever believed in it. It was just advantageous for them. And so some of these billionaires and everything that have maybe switched to our side in the short term, it's like, yeah, that's a good thing because these guys are pushing, agendas that you like, that you agree with, but ultimately you have to understand they're not doing it for you. They're not doing it for us. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing it for, and you really have to, that way you have to be wary about that. But I don't know. What do you think about that? Cause you were talking about like the dirty whore, like coming back.
It makes total sense.
There's a shift, but on one side you want to see that, but then on the other side, there's like a sinister twist to it. You know what I mean? Because now it's like, well, why are they doing that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. Right. No, that's a very good point. I think that's actually what we just did see. What we saw was a a smaller faction or a less powerful faction from the West Coast tech bro money just somehow fucking seize power from the old East Coast, old money banker families. And that is a powerful shift. And it is happening. And the new faction is somewhat right now got them on the ropes and consolidating power. I don't doubt also that the old East Coast families will counterstrike with something. I don't know what that is. This is actually very easily how civil wars start. There are so many ways that this could go so fucking wrong. It could walk the path of being, semi-bloodless and it just, backroom maneuvering, all this other shit. But it could also go fucking hot, easily. Very fucking easily. Yes, and you're absolutely correct. At the end of the day, none of these assholes have our interest at mind, our best interest. What we do have to be careful of, we do kind of have to look at which faction is most aligned with our values and to some degree back that faction. Because I can't just create, Clay's faction like, oh, fuck. Let me go to all the fucking poor people out of the trailer park and we're going to fucking, see. No, fuck no, man. That's not how shit works.
Yeah.
But we do have to also make sure that we don't get screwed in the end. We do have to make sure that we don't expend all of our energy fighting the battles for these cocksuckers, and then we're tired when we win and they fucking stab us in the back, because that's what happens a lot of times too.
Yeah.
It's there's nothing easy about it. It's a hard line to walk.
Because you and I and most of the people listening to this show aren't most. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say no one listening to this show is a billionaire. I know that's a stretch, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Nobody. Yeah, he's not listening to
Elon
this.
Musk is at his house right now.
The thing and it really came home to me, especially on this last presidential cycle, is just that everybody gets whipped up about global politics and national politics, but your local politics affects you way more than anything that's coming out of DC. I mean, by a large. And so, and yet that's one that most people spend least attention on. And it's just like, man, building your own political power and base, whatever that means, whether it means going to city hall meetings and making your voice known, getting to know your councilman or your quorum court at your county, supporting, making friends with people who are running for office and campaigning for them. And I mean, you have to get involved, man. And that's one thing the left, because it is in a sense a secular religion, that's their church, man. That the politics is their church. That's their community. And that, the cause is they give everything for.
Right.
Whereas the people that are kind of more right, conservative, they just want to do their job and hang out with their family and be left alone. But we're past that now. I mean, that is the way I think to survival is.
It's not an option.
Building your own economic and political power at the local level, because that's what, I mean, you look at the lockdowns, man, like again, my town, and I live in a college town. So we already know how politically, or the county I live in is conservative, but the city is very more tilts left because it's a college town. But even that, I mean, the lockdown we experienced was minor compared to places like California, where they're arresting people that are on the effing beach. You know what I mean?
Oh,
going to the beach. You know what I mean? Like totally different.
Oh, yeah.
And so
fucking crazy shit, right?
That wasn't pushed by DC. You know, that was a matter of local politics. And so I can't stress enough about how important that is. And that definitely something I've got on my radar to increase my influence, I guess, or my participation, is definitely something there,
Yes. No, me too. And it's so hard to do because all of the things want to push you to not give a shit about those and to care about the national thing. You can't really affect them. Who gives a fuck? It's so much more noise and so much more entertaining and, so much more bread and circus. But yeah, no, I mean, that's a realization for me too. Being involved at a local level is so fucking important, man. Especially when you talk about these southern states like we occupy. Like the county is God. Like they don't give a fuck actually what the feds say or nothing else.
Yeah, and
that's how things work.
your most powerful law enforcement official is your sheriff. More than the chief of police, because your chief of
Right.
police answers to the mayor. That's a political
Yep.
appointment, but your sheriff is elected, so he
Right.
answers to the constituencies. And like
Right.
just realizing things like that, man. Like your sheriff, dude. If
Right.
sheriffs would do what they were capable of, in a good way, a lot would turn around, man. They wield a lot of power. But the thing
Big
is,
time.
it's a political position, and it's
Right.
not a political appointment, but it's certainly a political position. So they're political creatures too, so they're going to see which way the wind's shifting, and if it's not shifting in the way
Right.
to encourage them to do the right thing,
Right.
they're not going to do it, right? Because they want to keep their job. So that's why, man, the local
Right.
politics is so important, dude. I mean, I didn't really realize that until this last 4 years or 8 years or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, man, we're kind of running out to the end of our time here. What kind of projects are you working on? Do you have any new books or any new things you're working on?
I'm debating writing a book because it's cold outside and it's easy to write indoors and not be the fuck outside. Which is part of my laziness. No, I'm kicking it around. Things are moving so fast right now that in some ways it's hard to write another book. It could be irrelevant by the time you're done writing it. Mostly right now, I think I'm in the same spot as a lot of this. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is actually happening now that this dynamic has changed. The dynamic of the whole country has changed. What does that mean? What have I done in the short term to make sure that I'm all right regardless? Just like we talked about with the prep stuff early on in the podcast. Got some new stuff coming on in the spring, but right now everything's just kind of like, okay, let's.
So is the new
see
stuff in the spring? Is that still on?
Right
You
now.
got the lid on that? Do you want to? Is that okay? Too early to share? Okay,
Get the lid on that in a little bit. We'll come back and talk about it.
That would be good.
Maybe
That's
we'll talk
my
about
next,
it in studio. That'd be way better.
My next bucket list or checklist is to get a place where I can record face to face with folks. It would be. It really would be. So okay, so
that'd be cool.
Laying low, thinking about maybe a book. Do you have any topics that you're considering?
Yeah, no, actually I do. I feel like it's time for an update on survival stuff in general. I don't mean that, start a fire and boil water kind of bullshit, but more in the vein of my, Prairie Fire and Concrete Jungle that were very relevant for their time. Right, but we've turned a corner in a lot of ways with what happens next. Yeah. Drone warfare has changed things so much. The potential factional alignment, I feel like, has changed so much. There's time for a new, complete update on those things. So that's what I'm looking at. That's a big project. Do you do a lot of research for your books, or do they just kind of come off your background and experience and just kind of what you see in the zeitgeist? Mostly they've come off my background and experience. It's funny, actually, my survival books I didn't research shit for. Like, okay, this is what I would do. Yeah. it makes things a lot easier. Yeah, and now it'll actually be kind of the same things. As much as I haven't paid attention to the Ukraine war, I have also in some ways paid attention to evolved tactics. I think I have a different perspective on that than a lot of people, because I also think about what would Americans do differently right here, and yours as well. What I mean? We know Americans, we know how we fucking we operate, how we function, but they still have things have changed. What would I do in a world where supply is a lot less? Because we've seen from COVID, that can happen. There's a lot to it. When you write, I think that's probably the next project. Do you have a writing schedule, or how do you deal with writer's block, or do you experience that? I mean, Yeah, my first two I wrote exclusively from 10 o'clock in the evening after my kids and wife went to bed until 4 o'clock in the morning, and that was just kind of fucking power through, fucking drink some coffee, fucking stay motivated. Now instead, I like to write in the morning, usually from 5, 6 to about 10. But yeah, that's just what I do. Is I have a block and I just write in that period, and it just flows, and
Yeah.
And with writer's block,
Mhm.
man, sometimes you just got to force yourself through it. I'm a pacer, so
Mm.
I'll go pace around the fucking yard for a minute, come back and write some, pace around the yard, come back and write some. But the key thing is I hate to say it now, he's a lefty, but it's true. Stephen King's theory of put fucking words on paper. That's it.
Yeah.
You just got to sit down.
Yeah,
You guys, it's discipline.
Start
you just
typing,
fucking
and
type.
then you can go back and revise it later and fine tune it. But you at least have to get something on the paper. I mean, that's probably true for just about any project. I mean, you just have to start it, you know, and then just tweak it as you go. But you can't just sit and expect it to just come out perfect, or else you'll never get started.
Writer's block is the equivalent of not having the motivation to go to the gym. Go.
I think I lost you again, dude.
Is it?
There we go. Well, hey, man,
shit.
we're about out of time, so I'm going to close it down. But do you have any last words or anything? I'm going to put the link to your website and your books and everything in the show notes so they can follow you. But
awesome.
what's your preferred? Like, if somebody wanted to find out more about you, where would be the first place you would send them?
Wrath of Wendigo has most of wrathofthewendigo.com has
and then
most of my shit
you're
on
pretty
it.
active on X.
That's the place to go.
Some would say maybe too active.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe. Yes. My wife, for one, would say too active. Yeah. I still can't call it X, but I'm
every time I open up
off the res on Twitter
and I get a notification, it's like I could see you posted. I'm like, God dang, man, is he just like got it implanted? Yeah, so you put out a lot of good stuff, a lot of funny takes on stuff, and So anyway, Clay Martin, thanks for coming in. Really enjoyed this conversation and looking forward to having you back again. Yeah, and for everybody else, hey, I hope you enjoyed the show.
Brother. I appreciate it.
If you have any questions, just hit us up in the comments or email us. And until next time, stay sharp and keep it close.